Hey guys, tonight we set sail on a story so quiet and weird even the gods would roll their eyes and yawn. The sea is glassy, the sky a milky watercolor of purple and gold, and you're trudging up a creaky wooden gangplank, heading toward a ship that doesn't even have a name on its hull. A few crates of figs, some amphorae of olive oil, and an anchor the size of a very confident goat. You probably won't survive this, but not because of anything violent. No, you're in danger of slipping into such a deep, mythical slumber that even Hermes would have trouble waking you. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, post your location and the local time in the comments. Let's see who's trying to fall asleep in the weirdest time zone tonight. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The port smells like old rope, stale seawater, and that one fish market that never quite cleans up. You step aboard and immediately notice how quiet the sailors are. No shouting, no laughter, just the occasional grunt as a crate gets shifted, or a low mumble you can't quite place. They glance at you briefly, then go back to staring at the horizon. You tell yourself it's fine. Greek sailors, you figure, probably just aren't morning people. The sun rises like honey spilling over everything, and the ship begins to drift from the dock. Not sail, drift. The wind is barely there, and the sea is so calm, it might as well be sleeping too. Someone hums a few notes of an old hymn to Poseidon. It dies out quickly, and then right around midday, you hear the voice. It doesn't shout, it doesn't ask, it sings. You peer over the side, and there, floating lazily on what looks like a chunk of driftwood, is a figure, young, smooth-skinned, hair like black ivy, lips red like wine. His cloak, if you can call it that, glows faintly in the sun, stitched with patterns that seem to shift when you're not looking directly at them. The sailors mutter. One of them laughs nervously, another spits over the side. They pull the stranger aboard without ceremony, and the moment he touches deck, the entire ship seems to exhale. Boards groan softly. A barrel lid pops loose. You feel the temperature shift, warmer, richer, like the world has inhaled summer. No one says who he is, not at first. He just smiles that sleepy, too-knowing smile and sits quietly near the prow, letting the breeze play with his curls. Historians still argue whether Dionysus was born a god or achieved godhood the hard way, through death, rebirth, and wine-fueled perseverance. What's not debated is this. The ancient Greeks feared him as much as they adored him. He wasn't the god of parties, he was the god of losing control. Madness, yes, but also transformation. Illusions, the line between what you are and what you think you are, that's his playground. You're not sure yet, though. To you, he's just a strange hitchhiker with perfect cheekbones and a vine-wrapped staff he calls a thyrsus, which sounds like a sneeze. The crew whispers about ransoming him. He's clearly rich, or at least pretending to be. They're not soldiers, just pirates pretending to be traders, trying to score easy coin from the next port. But there's a problem. The sea's not moving. Hours pass. The sails hang limp. Birds refuse to follow. And every time someone steps too close to the stranger, their foot slips slightly, like the deck doesn't want them getting near. You nibble on a stale fig and pretend not to notice the way the grapes in the crate next to you seem. Riper than they were this morning, almost glowing. One sailor finally laughs. "We'll ransom him," he says too loudly. "Get a good price from the city. Maybe he's a prince, or a fancy oracle's boy." The stranger turns and says quietly, "I wouldn't." Another sailor, older, with teeth like chipped pottery, scoffs. "Why not?" The stranger stretches. His spine cracks, loud as a thunderclap. "Because this ship's not going where you think it is." Now would be a good time to remember that dolphins weren't always the bubbly, click-happy mascots of tourist cruises. In Greek lore, dolphins were tricksters, ominous, sometimes messengers from Poseidon, sometimes people who didn't listen to warnings. You feel it before you see it, the slow hum beneath your feet. Not mechanical, musical. Like the wood is singing, very faintly, and the notes are ones you can't quite recognize. A language your bones almost understand. Here's a fringe theory. Some historians believe Dionysus was originally a foreign god, imported into Greece from the east. That's why he's always a little different, soft and cruel, gentle and brutal, a contradiction wrapped in velvet robes and thorns. The pirate crew doesn't know that. Or maybe they do. Maybe they just don't care. And that's where it all starts to go wrong. Because soon the grapes begin growing straight from the mast. You blink, rub your eyes, but there they are. Lush, deep purple clusters, heavy and sweet-smelling. Vines twist down like lazy snakes, curling around ropes, slipping under planks. One sailor reaches out to pluck a grape. His hand trembles. The grape bursts in his fingers, staining them deep red. No one says anything for a long time. Then, without warning, the sails catch a wind you don't feel. The ship lurches forward, and in the distance, the waves start to shimmer like something large is swimming just beneath the surface. You don't scream when the first rope moves on its own, but you do clutch the railing a little tighter. It's not just the wind anymore. The vines from the mast are crawling, slow and deliberate, like ivy with a secret agenda. They loop around cleats and spill into the seams of the deck, smelling of crushed fruit in wet soil. The stranger, still seated, still smirking, doesn't say a word. He just watches the crew like someone watching ants build the wrong kind of hill. The captain tries to regain control. You can tell by the way he squares his shoulders and barks out orders to tighten the rigging and change course. But none of the men move. Not because they're lazy, because their feet are stuck. Not with rope or chains, but with shadow. Thin black puddles that weren't there a minute ago now clutch their sandals, whispers soft and impossible to shake loose. No one talks about that part in the stories, do they? That before the gods show wrath, they show patience, an eerie, echoing kind of patience. Dionysus finally stands, and it's not dramatic. No thunder crack, no bright light, just a quiet motion like a cat stretching after a nap. But even that seems to ripple through the boards. The ship leans to one side, groaning, and every plank suddenly looks older, like centuries just passed in the space of a breath. He walks toward the mast, doesn't step, glides. The wood seems to bend slightly beneath him, not cracking, just surrendering. And then he speaks. His voice is soft, like a warm drink. But the moment it hits your ears, it fills the air like music, low and golden and strange. "You thought I was a captive," he says, looking around the deck. "You thought you'd take me somewhere I didn't want to go." A sailor clears his throat. "What are you?" Dionysus tilts his head. "Tired," he replies, "and merciful. For now." You think you see his eyes flash, not with anger, but with amusement, as if this whole voyage is a mildly disappointing joke. Historians agree Dionysus was one of the few Olympian gods who liked spending time among mortals. He'd walk through villages in disguise, accept food and wine, reward kindness with miracles, but insult him, refuse him shelter, question his identity, and your crops might never grow again. Or worse, you might become part of a myth that everyone finds boring, except the dolphins. There's a thump near the bow, then another. You look over, expecting a loose barrel, but it's a goat, a literal goat, fuzzy and confused, now wandering the deck like it's late for something. The crew loses it. Someone shouts. Another man draws a knife, but his hand turns into a fig branch. Just poof. One moment it's skin and bone, and the next it's leaves and sap and a sticky smell of springtime. Dionysus chuckles. "You're lucky. Most people get snakes." It's here you remember that in some versions of this myth, the god creates not just wine and vines, but visions, hallucinations, madness. There's a fragment from a lost play where Dionysus causes an entire village to dance themselves into the sea, giggling the whole way down. Fringe detail? Some ancient mystery cults believe Dionysus didn't cause madness. He simply revealed the madness already inside you. Back on the ship, more animals are appearing, not crawling up from below, just being. A panther sprawls near the helm, licking its paw lazily. Ivy creeps up the mast, now flowering with little pink blossoms that seem to whisper your name. You blink again, and a nymph is humming beside the rudder, weaving a garland out of shadow. The pirates try to act brave. One even lunges at Dionysus with a spear. The god flicks a finger. The spear bends midair like wet clay. The sailor's tunic bursts into flowers. You have two choices, Dionysus says now, and his voice is different, thicker, heavier. Leap or be unmade. The ocean bubbles. You swear it's laughing. Historians still argue whether this myth was meant as a warning or a comedy. After all, no one dies. They're transformed into dolphins. And dolphins in the Greek world weren't seen as harmless. They were uncanny, too smart, too human. Sailors said dolphins could guide ships or wreck them for fun. The first man jumps overboard without even speaking. He dives headfirst into the now glowing waves, and when he surfaces, he's not gasping for air. He's swimming in tight, looping circles. His skin darkens, his limbs blur. And then there's a dolphin, spinning in the water, making that sharp, laughing click. The others panic. 3 more leap. Another tries to climb the mast, but it melts into wine, and he slides down in a puddle of honey-colored liquid. You don't move. You're not sure if it's fear or awe or just sleepiness sinking in. Dionysus turns to you now. His eyes aren't glowing. They're sad. Like he didn't want this, but he also didn't not want it. You weren't part of this, he murmurs. You nod slowly. Watch then, and you do. One by one, the pirates abandon the ship. Some leap gracefully. Others stumble. A few beg. One sings a love song to a cloud and belly flops into the sea. And each of them, in turn, becomes a dolphin. There's a strange grace to it, like the sea always wanted them, welcomed them. A better fit than land, maybe. Back on deck, the animals are fading. The vines wilt. The music softens. The air cools. The ship, now empty but for you and the god, begins to steer itself. Somewhere behind you, the port you left no longer exists. You sit cross-legged on the deck now, because standing feels unnecessary. The boards are warm beneath you, still humming faintly, like the aftertaste of music. Above, the sails are full, though the wind remains eerily absent. You don't question it anymore. At this point, asking how would be like asking a dream why it forgets your name by morning. Dionysus is lounging near the stern, his back against a barrel that smells like cinnamon and moss. His eyes are half closed, but you know he's watching everything. Even the thoughts you haven't quite had yet. The sea stretches endless around you, its surface too smooth, too still, like someone painted it just for this moment. You finally speak. Why dolphins? He cracks one eye open. Why not? You blink. That's it? He laughs, soft and bitter. They're symbols, messengers, reminders. The Greeks loved them, thought they were signs of divine favor, or punishment, depending on the version. You wonder, not for the first time, if this is really happening, or if you've fallen asleep on the dock and are currently snoring into a coiled rope. But the air tastes too real. Salty, yes, but also sharp, like citrus and clove, and something wild just beyond language. There's a splash off the starboard side. One of the dolphins leaps from the water in a perfect arc, catching the sun like a living mirror. It lands with barely a ripple. You swear you hear it laugh. Historians agree the myth of Dionysus and the pirates first appeared in the Homeric hymns, a collection of ancient poems that sang the praises of the gods. But over time, the story grew weirder, more layered. In some versions, Dionysus asks to be kidnapped. In others, he stumbles aboard drunk and pretends to be helpless. The lesson shifts depending on who's telling it. Don't mock the divine, don't trust appearances, or perhaps the simplest of all, don't pick up strangers in robes made of starlight. The ship starts to change. You notice it in small ways at first. The grain of the wood seems smoother, less splintered. The sails ripple like fabric underwater. The ropes unwind themselves and reknot into perfect spirals, tighter than human hands could manage. The world is shifting into something more myth than matter. Dionysus murmurs something, and you really see the ocean. Not as a surface, but as a skin. Beneath it, massive shapes swim slowly. Not fish, not whales, older things, coiled and sleeping. You blink them away quickly. He follows your gaze. They won't bother us, not while I'm here. That's comforting, you reply, though your voice sounds distant, like it's coming from another person entirely. He smiles gently. Transformation isn't always a punishment, he says. Sometimes it's a release. Those men, those pirates, they were never going to be anything else. This way, they get to be part of something bigger, sleeker, simpler. But they didn't choose it, you say. Didn't they? You're about to argue, but you realize something. Those men never fought back. Not really, they'd panicked, yes, but none of them had tried to steer the ship back or demand mercy. They just surrendered. Historians still argue whether dolphins were considered divine, Dionysus adds after a moment. Some say they were sacred to Apollo, others to Poseidon. Some even claim they're humans who got too close to the gods and had to be softened into something less problematic. Softened? You echo. He shrugs. You can't be afraid of something that chirps and plays, can you? You look out at the water. One of the dolphins surfaces again, this time closer. It watches you with a too-human gaze, then dives under in a blur of silver. A fringe theory you once read comes back to you. Something obscure. It said dolphins were considered psychopomps by a forgotten sect of seafarers. Spirit guides ferrying souls not across rivers like the mythic Charon, but across oceans. A different kind of death. Or maybe a gentler one. The ship tilts slightly. You brace, but it's not tipping. It's turning, slowly, back toward the sun, which is now lower in the sky, spilling gold across the water like spilled honey. The dolphins fall in beside you, effortlessly keeping pace. You're not going to turn me into one, are you? You ask, only half joking. Dionysus smiles, an expression too wide and too ancient to be reassuring. Only if you ask nicely. You swallow. What happens now? He stretches again, this time rising fully to his feet. His robe billows despite the still air. Now you carry the story. You frown. No one will believe me. I know, he says. That's how it survives. There's a myth that old stories only stay alive if someone almost believes them. If they feel half true, whispered through time, never fully grasped, but always remembered in the bones. The ship begins to dissolve around the edges, not like it's being destroyed, but like it's fading into the background, like it was never really made of wood and nails and rope at all. The dolphins begin to peel away from the sides, heading off in different directions. Not swimming, but dispersing, as if they were seeds scattered on the wind, returning to whatever purpose the god has for them next. You blink again. You're on a beach. There's no ship, no vines, no god, just a pile of grape stems at your feet and the sound of waves too far away to see. The sand beneath you is damp and cold, clinging to your skin like it's trying to remember something. You sit up slowly. No sails, no sea creatures, no beautiful god in glittering robes. Just you, the empty shoreline, and a faint wine-sweet breeze that shouldn't be here. Not with this wind. The sky is streaked orange and lilac now. Dusk. You've lost time, or perhaps stepped out of it. Your legs ache faintly, like you've walked a long way, but your feet are clean. The only footprints around are your own, and one single trail leading away from the water, pressed lightly into the sand, then abruptly vanishing. You follow it without really choosing to. Just a few feet, really. It leads to a small stone, perfectly round, warm to the touch, and when you pick it up, you realize it isn't a stone at all. It's a tiny sculpture of a dolphin, carved in a style so ancient it predates writing. You know this somehow. The knowledge seeps in like seawater soaking into cloth. You pocket it, because of course you do. Behind you, the waves sigh. Historians agree that Dionysus had a complicated portfolio. He wasn't just the god of wine and revelry, he was the god of duality, of joy and despair, of liberation and madness. He tore down boundaries, especially the polite ones society likes to pretend are natural. You think of the pirates again, how quickly their tough talk crumbled once the vines crept in. How quietly they dove. You begin to walk. The beach curves gently, and in the distance, you see what might be a village. Low fires, soft smoke, someone calling out in a language you don't recognize, but somehow understand. The stone in your pocket is warm again. You press your hand to it, and for a moment, the waves behind you echo with faint laughter. There's a new weight in your chest. Not fear, not relief. Something quieter. A knowing. You've crossed a line and you didn't even feel it under your feet. As you walk, the details sharpen. You notice olives ripening on a nearby tree, though it's not olive season. A cat blinks at you from a wall, its eyes golden and strangely round. Somewhere, faint music plays, pipes and drums, too distant to source, but too rhythmic to ignore. And then someone calls your name. You stop. No one is there, but it doesn't feel threatening. More like the sea itself is remembering you, nudging you, saying, "You've seen it now. You're part of it." A mainstream fact some people forget: Dionysus was the only Olympian god born of a mortal woman. Semele. That alone made him different. Half of this world, half of something too big to name. Maybe that's why he walks so easily between borders. Maybe that's why you, having met him, feel ever so slightly less fixed than before. A breeze lifts your hair, and with it, a whisper, "Tell it," even if no one listens. You pass a weathered statue near the road into the village. It's just a chunk of worn marble now, but you recognize the shape. A young man in flowing robes, one hand outstretched, a faint suggestion of a smirk on what's left of his face. Vines have grown around his feet. Wildflowers bloom where his eyes once were. You stop again. The villagers, whoever they are, don't look at you strangely. One offers bread. Another pours wine into a chipped cup and hands it over with a nod. The taste is shockingly good, cool, earthy, familiar. No one asks where you come from. You realize that in this place, arrival is enough. And maybe that's what Dionysus always meant. Arrival isn't always about geography. Sometimes it's about letting go, about diving into the sea when the ship turns strange. Back in your room, whenever you finally get there, you'll check the folds of your coat and find a few grape seeds you didn't know were there. Maybe you'll dream of dolphins. Maybe you won't. But you'll never hear their chirping without remembering the way the ship creaked under a god's quiet threat. One final debate among scholars. Was Dionysus gentle or cruel? Was he justice or chaos wrapped in silk? You decide. The answer is simple. Yes. And as the stars begin to bloom above this quiet village and the firelight grows long and soft across the dirt paths, you let out a sigh. Not of exhaustion, of understanding, of surrender maybe. Because the myth wasn't about dolphins, it was about choice. It always was. The air cools gently now, each breath coming a little slower than the last. You stretch your arms, then let them fall. The night settles over the village like a blanket stitched by time itself. Faint waves kiss the far-off shore, just enough to remind you they're still there, still waiting. Somewhere in the trees, a nightbird calls once, then silence. You lean back, letting the earth hold you. The sky above spreads like ink and water, and the stars feel nearer than they did before. They don't twinkle. They pulse, steady, slow, like a heartbeat you didn't know belonged to the universe. In the distance, a dolphin might be swimming under moonlight, its back breaking the water in soft arcs. Or maybe that's just your mind, already drifting. Either way, it doesn't matter. You're safe now. The story has ended. The gods are quiet, and you are sinking, slower, softer, deeper.